Everybody, it is my great honor to introduce writer-director Jerzy Skolimowski and writer Ewa Piaskowska. Welcome. Yeah.
Do you want to sit in the middle, Jerzy, or Jerzy in the middle? Good evening.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad you both are here. Ewa, I'm going to start with you. When I introduced the film, I mentioned that this entire narrative is built on emotion. And every scene, every frame is about emotion. Can you tell us about writing and developing a film unlike something we've ever seen that is all about emotion?
Yeah, this is, thank you for this question very much, because this was basically the main and the essential idea that stood behind the concept of making this film in general, which is not to tell a story about an animal or a donkey, but like to be the donkey, to be the animal, to really feel and experience the world through, you know, one of those creatures' eyes, which we feel are, you know, under, you know, so much more attention should be given to their sensibilities and their, you know, emotions and their, no? Don't you agree?
Of course. But when you were writing it, was that a challenge?
It was always in the script, yes, and we were very optimistic when we were writing it in the way that we basically wrote it as though we were speaking about a human actor, like, you know, the donkey comes up to a stream, looks left and right, and then he seems happy, you know, as though you were writing a script about, you know, with an ordinary human actor. Which then proved to be so much more difficult to execute.
Let me interrupt you, because I hear the word emotion, emotion, emotion here many times. When we arrived in the front of the theater 5 minutes ago, I've seen one lady sitting on the steps in front of the theater and
Wonderful
crying.
lady, yes.
And we stopped next to her, and Eva asked her what happened, and she expressed the feeling that it was too much of emotions for her. I guess she probably left the theater.
No, she's probably here, Jerzy. Don't assume. Don't assume anything.
Oh, the lady is still here?
Don't assume. Don't make assumptions, please.
Well, you know, I have those fantasies of film director, and you're cutting me down. So, okay, I'll be dull and
no, just don't make assumptions about other people, Jerzy. That's what I'm telling you.
Jerzy, your visual work in the film is astonishing. You know, you tell us a story visually, and I was taken aback by, in a good way, by the language that you created, where there was a pattern of master shots, and then the camera starts slowly coming into close-ups, and then you establish the point of view of Io. Can you tell us about how you came up with that visual language in the film?
Once we decided that the main hero of the film will be donkey, after meeting the donkey, because I haven't seen the donkey in my life before deciding that this will be a hero of my film. I met the donkey, and the first thing I noticed was the out of proportion size of his eyes. I don't know how many of you had seen the donkey close enough to find out the proportions of the eyes against the whole mug. They are really huge. And when I met the donkey like this, you know, and I seen the eyes, and there were, with a specific melancholic mood, or how would I say? Expressions, yes, that's the right word. And I thought, whenever I will cut in the film to those eyes and then showing his point of view, the expression, the melancholic expression of those enormous eyes would give us a comment on what we see. And that comment would be probably a little bit different than our human beings comment on the same picture. And my instincts were right. So the pattern you just mentioned was established before we start to shoot the film. So my instructions to my DOP were, listen, we generally shoot the film this way. We will cover the situation by master shot, which would be a kind of objective shot, like we human beings would see it, you know, people sitting. Here is the moderator, here is the guy who is talking right now. Next to him is his co-writer, co-producer, and wife. And somewhere there is a donkey, okay? Then we discover, okay, here is the donkey, so we will get into the closer shot of the donkey, and then very close shot of his eyes, and then we cover again the same scene, like his point of view, again, you know, going like this. And I already experienced it in the very first day of shooting, looking at the monitor, that this shot, POV shot of the donkey, it's slightly different from what we have seen in the master shot. It has got some...
I mean, it is different, or it feels different?
Some mysterious difference, which I don't know. It's a mystery of cinema, why it is different. Maybe the camera was moving slightly slower. Maybe it would, I don't know, stopped in the certain moments or whatever. But the difference was there. And the pattern of telling the story through the donkey's eyes was confirmed from the day one of shooting, that we are expressing the emotions and mood of the animal. And therefore, we will be able to identify with that creature, you know, in our private life, completely unknown to us. It was unknown to me, the animal. As I mentioned, I haven't seen the donkey in my life before I start to shoot this film. But right now, I become practically a little bit of a donkey myself. I have a dreams.
Donkey freak.
Yes, I have dreams about
Looking
donkeys.
at donkey babies on YouTube.
But
Donkey
Jerzy,
videos, donkey.
on top of the point of view cinematography, you add an audio perspective that I would love to hear how you developed, where we hear, it feels like we're hearing the inner thoughts of Io through the sound.
Well, I have a fortune to work with really excellent collaborators in this film. I should mention those key people. Here is one, you know. Eva has written the most of our script. Although we share the credit, I would say more than 50% is hers. So she was number one. Secondly, it was the DOP which did a phenomenal job, in my opinion. Number three is the composer. His name is Paweł Mykietin. He is a famous Polish classical composer. His symphonies are being played all over the world in the most famous philharmonies. But he is ambitious enough that for him, the work on the music for the film, it's not stepping down into something easier or no, he treat the music for this film with the same ambition as when he's composing his Olympic
symphonies. Yeah.
And my instruction to Paweł was such, Paweł, because the main character doesn't speak, so the dialogue is cut down to the minimum, and therefore I need your help in expressing what the donkey would be telling us if he could speak. So whenever you see the moment in the film when you could get into donkey's head and try to express his inner monologue, please do that, because this is the key for this film to be understood by the audience. You have to help in understanding what's going on with the main protagonist.
I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. The fact that there's not much dialogue in the film and that you have to convey everything visually and sonically, did you find that as a more liberating?
Liberating, absolutely
as a freedom?
Thrilling, exhilarating experience.
Definitely liberating. Io is our number 4 work to
Essential
together
Killing,
with
4
Eva.
Nights with Anna.
We started with 4 Nights with Anna, then followed by Essential Killing, by then 11 Minutes, and this is number 4. So we have quite a lot of experience working together on the scripts.
You're still getting along.
Yes, after 28 years of marriage. My little act, you know, I was in the first 10 minutes of Avengers fighting Scarlett Johansson in whatever. That's a side remark. But where was I?
About the fact that it was liberating.
Yes, liberating. Because we found out after making those 3 films before Io that we are fed up with the so-called linear narration of the film. You know what it is, the famous 3-act structure, you know, this telling the story from A to Z, introducing the characters, then making a little conflicts between them, then resolving the conflict. Then, or the 18th minute, you have to have this, how is it called? The
Plot point 1.
plotting point.
Plot point
Plot
1.
point, yes. And then you resolve that, and then in the 39 minutes, you have to have another plot point, etc., etc. And because 99% of the films are made this way, probably not only us, but many of you, I hope, as well, get fed up with it. You know, it's the films become all the same. You know, you go and you go to
Some
the
of
cinema,
the films,
you
a big
start
chunk
to
of films, not all the films. Yes, you mean.
well, quite many times you feel it.
This is
Anyway,
how you
I had
actually-
a feeling that after 10 or 15 minutes of watching the film, I already know what's going to happen and how it's going to end. And unfortunately, most of the time, I'm right. So this is why we said no linear narration. We have to get rid of it. We have to tell the story different way. And therefore, the animal character as a main character of the film would be very helpful. Would cut the dialogue completely, or a good chunk of it, at least, and we would have to find other ways of expressing his moods and emotions.
Eva, I mentioned to you that I read Platero and I when I was a little kid, which is this Latin American classic book, and I was blown away by the fact of the amount of research that the two of you did before actually sitting down and writing. I mean, obviously there's the influence of Robert Bresson, but there's other influences as well that you research and you synthesize it and then went on to write the script.
That's our working method always, you know, whenever we come up and finally decide upon an idea, you know, we are usually set up on sort of a good mixture of spontaneity and speculate and calculation. So we surround ourselves usually with like all possible material about the subject. In this case, we've read, you know, Apuleius' The Golden Ass. We read Metamorphosis. We've read, you know, the Bible again and all these elements of like Jesus entering, you know, Jerusalem on a donkey. And then we've read all those excerpts of, you know, Don Quixote and Winnie the Pooh, and we watched Pinocchio, and then we just basically, you know, just watched everything possible about donkeys and read everything possible about donkeys, and also the, you know, all those Georgian films from the 50s. I mean, there's lots of material really. And then basically when we surround ourselves with all this imaginarium of, you know, of our subject, we talk a lot, like day after day after day, and imagine what kind of, you know, different, you know, angles this story could take. But then suddenly when we sit down to write, you know, it's like an outburst of energy. We don't really think, it just kind of happens, you know, it's just like a free flow of you know, of like an essence.
But I think you've addressed this a little bit. But when did you get all of the stories that you mentioned is from the point of view of humans looking at the donkey and dealing with the donkey, including Robert Bresson's film, which is the young girl is the.
We've read all of this stuff, knowing that we want to turn everything upside down.
From the get-go, you knew that you wanted
absolutely,
to.
Absolutely, yes.
And I'd love to hear
why.
Yeah, from the get-go, that was your impetus.
Yeah, because we really wanted to do something that we care about, you know, because we really care about animals. And we, you know, in Poland, we live in the middle of a forest. We have an apartment in the center of Warsaw, which we sort of visit sporadically. But most of the time we spend in the middle of nowhere, in like this, you know, little hunting, 100-year-old little wooden house in the middle of a huge forest, you know, and sort of just, you know, looking at nature and nothing, you know, built by humans every day, day after day, and meeting wild animals day after day, and then it, you know, just sort of does something to your, you know, conscience, you know, and
just to give you a picture, when we wake up in the morning and get out of the house, we'll meet wild deers, foxes. What are the other names of the?
You know, birds. I'm like feeding birds and stuff. You know, we
Well,
just like
a lot of birds, of course. and rabbits. I met once
Lynxes are
a
introduced
boar,
back into the
which
same area.
was a little bit
Lynx,
scary.
lynx as well.
Who cares about
Moose. Owls. We have an owl in our
that?
barn.
We have an owl in our barn, you know, the white owl.
Probably like, you know, some crazy creature living on, you know, under our roof, like in between the roof of the house and the tiles. You know, we can hear her every night. So it's like, you know, we just live with animals.
And this contact with nature and with animals made us like nature freaks, you know, that you know, now when we are in town and we hear the sound of the cars and, you know, and people talking on the streets, mostly swearing, you know, those dirty words, we prefer to be with those wild animals
Yeah, like
who don't
hermits. We're
swear.
like hermits a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and then they don't drive the cars. And
Jerzy, tell us about, you've worked with actors before, and now you're dealing with a donkey, but which actually was several donkeys. You had 6 donkeys. Tell us about your experience working with the donkey.
well, first of all, the difference between working with the human actors and the animals is such that animals don't intellectualize their parts.
That's my motivation.
Yes.
Why should I be here?
They don't ask the questions which are already answers on the pages of the script, you know. I was shooting years ago some idiotic, huge production from the Napoleonic era with some famous actors.
It wasn't idiotic, it was quite funny, it was
Suddenly
nice.
I was asked by the actor, why am I jumping out of the horse right now? And I look at the script and I told him, it's written here in the script, you're jumping out, so that's the answer. The animal wouldn't ask me such a question. And also, you know, the treatment. I got really close bond with my donkeys. I wasn't shy to whisper a gentle words into his ears. You know how you treat your home pet. You use a different tone of voice. You say some nonsense words, but the tone of voice is what you want to communicate with your home pet. And this is what I was doing with my main actors. When my crew had a moment of free time, I don't know, eating lunch or maybe preparing some other shot or transporting something, I was spending that so-called free time. By the way, I didn't have the trailer. The donkeys had got their horse wagons. So I was spending the time with them, whispering those kind words and making a kind of bond. How else I can name it? And we created, I myself and my animal partners, we created some kind of feeling of coexistence. I know that it sounds a little bit strange, but we felt like we are on the mission, you know, looking eye to eye. We felt like this is 2 of us, and the rest of the world is somewhere else. It's just that, you know, am I expressing myself
No, of course,
somehow?
beautifully. I could go on listening to you forever. But
so it was really something.
Something special.
Yeah, my love for animals generally was executed at that very moment in its best, because I felt like being one of them, or, you know, like being on an equal level. We were the partners. We were on the mission. I couldn't do what I wanted without their help, and they were probably in the same situation.
No, they didn't know what the hell they were doing there. Jerzy.
And of course, one more thing about the difference of working with the human actors and the animals. Animals don't know that they act.
Exactly.
They don't know
They
the
don't know what
acting.
film is.
They don't know the idea of pretending something, which is a huge difference. And now going back to Robert Bresson's Au hasard Balthazar, I have to confess that that was the only film which got me into tears. I was really crying at the very end scene. If you remember the death of Balthazar, when he was lying on the slope, being surrounded by the sheep, the herd of sheep with the little belts around their necks dingling like this. You know, I was really crying like a normal spectator. I lost my semi-cynical, semi-professional look at the film, questioning how was it done, was it right, was it wrong, why the camera is here instead of there, why there is a tracking shot. I forgot about everything. I was crying because the donkey was dying. And this is the power of the animals' presence on the film, that we believe that this is the truth, because it is the truth. It's not
because
pretending.
he's not acting, yeah, because
It's
it's not acting.
an acting. It's better than the most brilliant performance of any Laurence Olivier or any actors of this class, because watching the performance of the great actors, we always have this uncomfortable feeling that we are watching the performance, that in a moment the director would say cut, and the actor would get up and go for a drink or joke with his friends, and it was all pretending. While when the animal makes me cry, I'm just powerless. It's you know.
Yeah.
It's too strong.
You described, Jerzy, the ending of Au hasard Balthazar, Robert Bresson film, and you know, that when he dies, there's a spiritual quality to that film. In your film, the ending doesn't have that. It's direct. Is brutal. Can you tell us about how did you arrive to your ending?
I believe that because of the message of the film, the general message is we have to examine our attitude, our human beings' attitude towards the animals. We have to ask ourselves the questions, and the answers are, like, for example, the two of us, we reduce the consumption of meat by solid 2/3 or maybe even more than that. And I hope that as a result of watching this film, at least part of the audience would ask themselves the same question. Do I have to eat meat every day? Isn't it creating the necessity of such a brutal and I don't know the stronger word for it. What I have in mind, this is the industrial farming. This is something which really makes me sick, being a human being myself, because I'm ashamed of all of us that we allowed such a thing to exist, you know, that the animals are being industrial product which eventually we consume. Mm-hmm. That's something which I hope that as a result of looking at this film, some people will examine themselves if this is absolutely necessary to have the ham or bacon every morning, or maybe we could down it to once a week or maybe even less.
Eva, when I watched the film, I thought about what Jerzy was talking about, but then there's all their themes that come in the film. You know, I think about war, and it's just the whole film is open to interpretation because it's so poetic.
It's an experience. It's not really a film. It's an experience, I think. No. Mm-hmm. And then if you sort of allow yourself to talk this way about your subject matter, you sort of open your mind out to creativity and spontaneity, and then you sort of even your work on set is we have an animal actor. You don't know what to expect every day. You have no idea what it's going to do, you know? You have like plans and you have a schedule, and then you have no idea if this donkey is going to like work with you or maybe not. So like the whole thought process, the creative process is something totally different. And then sort of if you allow yourself this comfort, then you sort of just open up so many sort of different valves in your brain, and the whole thing becomes like just a fun and and such a creative adventure, That's why we just loved being on the set every day, and we loved every little element of making this film, And I mean, editing it was a creative element, and shooting it, every shot, every, little piece of it was an experience and an adventure and a wonderful thing, because we sort of allowed ourselves, to be free, and it's like a free fall,
Yeah. We have to part, but before we say goodbye to them, if you love this film, please spread the word. This coming Friday is playing here at the Riviera for 2 weeks. So please tell your friends to come and experience it in the theater. And it's Jerzy and Eva, I'm overwhelmed. What an honor to have you here. I'm such fans of you, the two of you. And thank you for making EO for us.
Thank you all very much, so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.